That's recording.
I'm liking the name of the third stadium.
Which
the Wankhead Stadium.
The Wankeddy.
The Wankeddy. Yeah, enjoying that.
Wankeddy, will you?
Brilliant. I wonder how audible my cough sweets are going to be.
Probably quite.
Yeah, adds to it, I think. In a way, I don't know, because I think the overall collective knowledge, even though I didn't have much in the first place, has gone down because I know even less about this than I do tests, which is still not a lot. And then obviously you're a test man comparatively, so that's great. We're both going to be doing some learning.
Let's give it a go.
Yeah.
I do know, when I first got into cricket, I was really into I would watch everything, but I think I've just sort of, my interest has cooled over time. It's just very oversaturated, and it's just sort of led me to watch none of it.
Right, yeah.
But when I was in union, it was like perfect procrastination because the IPL would start at 3.
Yeah.
I'd be in the library. I'd do like my only good work of the day. I'd go for like a 2-hour lunch, and then I'd come back just as the IPL started and just watch that in the library.
Nice. Do you watch the IPL these days?
I've watched it less. I'm a Rajasthan fan.
Right.
I don't know. I'd keep an eye on it, but I don't go out of my way to watch it.
Yeah. Shall we?
We shall.
We shall. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Corridor of Uncertainty. We're back. I was going to say back with a bang, but in my case, it's going to be a bit of a whimper because, as you might be able to tell, my voice is not in the best position. I spent all of yesterday trying to recover, get myself in the game and ready for this here podcast, by which I mean I played The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild all day, and had some pasta and drank a lot of water. So hopefully I'm going to be okay.
Absolutely fine.
Do I sound fine?
Yeah,
I don't feel like I sound fine. This morning I didn't sound fine.
Yeah, but I think you go deeper, almost like you.
Okay.
Which is fine. You might notice that my voice is better.
Yeah,
I
as
never really acknowledged the fact during the last series that I was losing my voice, but
you said earlier
the entire thing.
There's always got to be one of us with a throat-based issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's you to have the baton today.
Yeah, how the tables have turned. So if you do hear like the clack-a-lacking of my mouth, that's my trusty Jakeman's cough sweets, which I don't like, actually.
I thought that was going to be like a promo, and then
no,
there's a good bit of BBC impartiality.
Yeah, I've lost them
I am having
already.
Jakeman's, but I hate them.
yeah, impartiality, neutrality. I'd prefer Hall's Soothers, so if you want to send some stuff my way, you're better. But yes, we're back. It only seems like it probably only was a few weeks ago that we were sat here drinking Guinness, talking about the Ashes ending in unceremonious defeat. But now, Charlie, we're going to speak about the T20 World Cup, aren't we?
Yeah, it's back. It doesn't feel like it's been gone for very long, but that's kind of the nature of the beast with T20 World Cups these days. But we do have a very intriguing tournament on our hands.
I was just saying to Charlie beforehand that I don't know much about Test cricket, but I know even less about T20. So this is, as ever, going to be a massive learning exercise. And I suppose, first of all, should we just do like a little bit of a general overview of what it's all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was, it came to be in sort of the middle of the 2000s. Wasn't taken very seriously at first. Sort of South Africa is credited with inventing it in the mid 2000s, maybe 2003, with like a sort of intra sort of national tournament that they did, and then England were quite early adopters of it. They were the first one to have like their own sort of proper tournament called the Blast, which still runs sort of parallel to the 100, and you know is the victim of a lot of discourse about, you know, everyone says we should have just kept the Blast. Anyway,
do you think we should have done?
That's
off topic.
Yeah, that's so off topic. But we have kept the Blast, but I think people think it's been, you know, it's being killed to feed the 100. But anyway, we'll go into that another time. We'll do a domestic England cricket thing in the summer. But so yeah, the Blast, and then our first T20 international was Australia versus New Zealand, and you know it was very theatrical. No one was really taking it seriously. There was a there was a point when Billy Bowden, who was like a famous sort of larger than life umpire, who did like to make it about himself a little bit, as all the best umpires do.
It's not about you, Mike.
Pulled out a yellow card and started yellow carding people. So it was, but that's all to say that within 20 years we've gone from something that was, widely regarded as a joke to something which is now seen as the pinnacles of the sport, at least, financially. It's where the big bucks are, and you can understand why, given, it's condensed. It's a good TV product. It's a very cricket thing for the short version to be 3.5 to 4 hours long. But here we are. And also, another very important thing that happened early on for the development of the game was India winning the World T20, as then it was then called, which probably accelerated the adoption of the game in India. I'm sure they would have got there quick enough, but it led to the formation of the IPL, which is one of the biggest sports leagues in the world, which ignited on the very opening night because a certain Kolkata batsman blazed 140 odd, which stood. It might even still be the highest score in IPL history.
On the opening night?
On the opening night. Do you know who scored it?
You said a certain Calcutta-based. That I think a lot of people would probably get it based on that, wouldn't they? I would not be one of those people. Is it Kohli?
No, it's not. So it's the second highest. Chris Gale, 175, beat it. But yeah, for 5 years, the highest IPL score was 158 not out by Brendan McCullum.
Brendan McCullum?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, he's a man with T20 heritage, and he leads England into this T20 World Cup.
Wow.
But yeah, so the IPL has sort of blown up, and it's led everyone and their mothers to want their own mini IPL, to the point where a lot of the franchise leagues around the world now, the teams are actually owned by IPL teams. So we're definitely on the way to like a global league at some point.
Wow.
Where like teams will just own players rather than the nations.
Yeah.
Which, again, we can get into another time, but this is all just to say that T20 cricket is, massive, absolutely massive now. And these tournaments, although they sort of come a little bit too frequently at the minute to feel super special, they are very important. And also, India, I would have to say, because of the IPL and many other factors, are massive front runners.
Yeah, you mentioned that it's a lot of money in that. Is that why do you think it all just ties back to the fact that there's loads of money in the game? That's why teams take it seriously?
Not necessarily the teams, but it's definitely, why the boards want a piece of it.
Yeah.
Especially with, you have to argue that the way that cricket has been set up historically with predominantly bilateral series, i.e. just teams playing each other, is far from ideal, and is sort of, the meaning has become devalued over the years. So to have like these leagues probably does have an air of legitimacy to the sport more. But also, I think if you want to ask why do we have so many of these tournaments at the minute, it's because there's another person who wants their slice of the pie, and that's the ICC, the International Cricket Council. The part of the reason why we have so many international tournaments now is because that is the only place that they make their money. So they just get as many in there as they can. So yeah, I think partly the money has led to certain parties wanting to play a lot of it, but I also do think that the players, see it as something not just to line their pockets. I think at the highest level, i.e., World Cups and the IPL, it is a proper spectacle, and it's a game that's evolving at a rapid rate. The way the scoring is sort of ballooned in recent years is absolutely ridiculous, and I think the players do have a lot of fun playing it. So it's certainly legitimate, and I think it's got its place within the landscape. The problem is that it's probably going to end up eating the whole thing.
Yeah.
But for now, let's not get doom and gloom.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this one.
We'll keep it light.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, you mentioned there that India are in a very good spot. Just briefly read a BBC Sport article where all of the pundits have predicted them to win it. But we are a very an England-based and England-centric podcast, I suppose you could say. We try and talk about other things as well. But we should probably talk about England's chances. I always thought, and this might be a very service level sort of noob point of view or assumption, that because of the Bazball, the kind of quickly get high scores and sort of play quite gung-ho cricket would suit this kind of shorter format. Is that the case?
Well, it's interesting that it's the other way around. If anything, the England's white ball revolution came before the red ball revolution, and Stokes and McCullum clearly took a lot of inspiration from what Owen Morgan did post 2015 World Cup, which was also actually inspired by Brendan McCullum's New Zealand. They got to the final of that World Cup, co-hosting it with Australia, playing incredibly attacking cricket. Brendan McCullum was opening, and he was just there to hit every ball he could.
Yeah.
And McCullum took a lot of inspiration. Owen Morgan took a lot of inspiration from that. But it was also a golden era for English white ball players. Jared Kimber, who I mentioned a lot, would credit the Pro 40 for this, which was a domestic tournament which was played by all the England players that then made up the great World Cup winning team, where it was basically a 50 over game shortened to 40 overs, and Jared Kimber says that taught the players to be more aggressive while still being able to build an innings in the way that you need to because 50 overs is a long time really, and England have fallen down in subsequent years trying to play an ODI like a T20. So this is all just to say that, England did have a great team and they had a great approach. However, do they have quite the same personnel as Bairstow and Roy opening batting, and then Root, Morgan, Stokes in the middle order, and then Joss Butler to come through, and then that bowling attack, Wokes, Archer, Wood, Moeen Ali, Rashid, Plunkett? Probably not quite on that level. And I think, you've seen England since Morgan stepped away start to really struggle in white ball cricket in certain periods. And then obviously the noise around the Test team at the minute isn't great, and the sides are like as close as they've been for a long time as in terms of the personnel. There's quite a few people that you will see in every team. So the general vibe around English cricket isn't great at the minute with the Ashes and with the ODI team, but that has sort of masked the fact that actually they've been doing very well in T20s. They were the first full member nation to breach 300 last summer. Salt and Butler sort of got them there, 304 for 2, I think it was, which it seemed like for all many that it was going to be India that were going to breach that barrier first, but England sort of roared through the gate. I do think that they've, ever since Harry Brook became captain and McCullum coach, they have done very well to sort of settle things down and pick a consistent group of players instead of just, trying everything and seeing what will stick. And I think, they've earmarked players out for roles, even if it wasn't necessarily the role they play elsewhere, but they've, said, this is what you're doing for us. And as a result, I think you've got a fairly settled England team that will be Salt and Butler opening up, which, they're England's trump card for sure. They're two of the best T20 openers in the world, so to have them paired up together is great. And then we've got Jacob Bethel in the middle order, which, is everyone's favourite son at the minute. And then we've got Harry Brook, who's fantastic batting at 5 for England in T20s, sort of very adaptable, can, if he's in early, he can build an innings. If he's in late, which he often is because of the power in front of him, he can really go from ball one. And then you've got Sam Curran back in the side, who's a very handy all-rounder. He's a smart batter, and he's a very sort of cunning bowler. And then I think, looking at the bowling, you've got Rashid, you've got Overton, Luke Wood, Josh Tong, and Liam Dawson, crucially. So I do think it's a strong squad. I think there are a few question marks around it, however.
You led me on to a next point there, Charlie. Sort of taking me by the hand and leading into the next question. So I'll ask that question: what doubts are around that squad?
So I think who's going to bat number 4 is the only, and then subsequently number 6 are sort of the only 2 positions that are up for any question. So it's been Tom Banton filling that role in the Sri Lanka series, but the feeling behind that was kind of that it was because they were just waiting for Ben Duckett to recover from a finger injury, and then he would slot into that position, which is what he did in the last game, and he got 0 off 1. So
he's not having a great time of it, is he?
He's really struggling, and Banton, in his stead, has done really well. But then you also have Sam Curran, who is going to play. It's just where will he bat? And it seems like it's going to be 6. The problem with that is that Sam Curran, he has a good record batting in, sort of domestic and franchise T20 cricket, but he bats up the order where he has time to get set. He's not a go from ball one kind of guy. He needs, to be 10 off 10 and then he will explode. He's very good against the spinners and he's very smart, like innings builder, sort of more like in a Ben Stokes way. The problem is that England, pretty much the entire time he's been a T20 player for England, he's always been at 6 and 7. And his average there is much lower. His strike rate there is not good enough to be a finisher.
Okay.
And his best knock in T20 internationals for England came the other night in that final T20 against Sri Lanka. He scored 58, I think, off quite a few balls. It wasn't fast, but it was what the team needed because they'd slipped to 60 for 6. And he sort of got them out of trouble and got them something defendable. However, that's very few. So it's quite a defeatist way to build a team. If you think that's the role that your number 6 is going to be playing in T20 cricket, you want them to be facing 10 balls in innings and scoring as close to 30 runs off those 10 balls as you can. So I would say that Sam Curran should bat at 4, where he can, take an over or 2 in the middle to get himself set. Tom Banton should be at 6, which actually isn't his natural position, but most of the time that they've been playing him in the last 6 to 8 months since he's been recalled, it has been in that finisher role and he's taken to it with aplomb. So I think you leave him there. But the problem is, I think they have got Ben Duckett earmarked for this like spin bashing role at number 4, which they tried him opening. I think everyone thought initially when he came through back into the white ball team that he would be a good middle order batter because he's so good against spin. But they tried him opening. It's not that it's not really worked, but I think he was rested. Salt and Butler went back up to the top and then did what they did against South Africa. And then it was like, okay, well, you can't really touch that. So now where does Ben Duckett go? I think you just drop him, but I think England will play him at 4. He's also left-handed, which one of the sort of trends emerging of T20 cricket at the minute, led by India, is that you want a left-right combination at most times. So I think England are keen to have another left-hander in there.
What's that?
So a good way to explain it, I think, bowling to a left-right hand combination is always a little trickier because, you have to change what you're doing ball by ball. If they're getting singles, that's sort of what is credited as part of the reason why Crawley and Duckett work well together. But it gets even more sort of serious with T20 cricket because of matchups and because of boundary sizes. So matchups is something where certain types of batters, i.e. like what hand you bat, or if you want to get more granular, the batter themselves and their record, you basically match them up with bowlers who would have an advantageous record against them. So as a standard example, a left-hander, think Ben Stokes, to an off-spinner, think Nathan Lyon. Ben Stokes really struggles against Nathan Lyon. And on some level, that's just because he's left-handed and an off-spinner spins it in a direction that is moving like out to a left-hander, which is traditionally seen as harder to play spin if it's moving away from your bat rather than in towards you. So matchups has become a huge thing. So the way to sort of get around that is to pair your batters with each other in a way that one's weakness is another's strength.
I see, okay.
So Phil Salt, KKR won the IPL a couple of seasons ago, and Phil Salt had an amazing season. But this was thought as a time when he just couldn't play left-arm spin. He hadn't figured it out yet, or that was the perception anyway. So what KKR did was his opening partner was Sunil Narayan, who's a bowler. He has opened the batting at various points through his career, but it was basically one of the main reasons they did it. It was to balance the side, but also it was because Sunil Narayan was excellent against left-arm spin.
Yeah.
So then it stopped people from just bowling left-arm spin first over because Sunil Narayan would take the first ball, he would smash it, and then he would be protecting Phil Salt at the same time. So the thought is that left-hand, right-hand partnerships can sort of deter the bowling team from using matchups. And then the other thing is that, especially in a tournament like this with so many games going on, in such a short period of time, there'll be points when the pitch that they're playing on will be one way or the other.
Yeah.
And then that'll make the boundary a lot shorter on one side. And then some grounds you have sea breezes or whatever that will carry the ball. So anyway, the thought is that a tactic using T20 cricket by the bowlers is to just pack one side of the field and try and hide the ball out there because that's the longer boundary. But if you're doing it with a left-hander and a right-hander, then the long boundary for one person to the leg side is going to be the short boundary to the other person. Where was I going with this?
Well, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense what you're saying.
But you'll see. I think you'll see over the course of the tournament that it is a really tactical game, and it's really interesting in that regard. Whereas Test is still very much just the skill, the one with the more skill sort of wins out, or the more metal, or the more desire. This is very tactical. This is very, we'll put him here for this reason, and then it will just do an over. You might even see some retired outs. That's becoming a thing where they just pull a player out if he's not going quick enough. They just we'll get someone else in.
Wow, interesting. So I was going to ask a sort of general question that you've sort of touched on there, just kind of comparing the difference in tactical, or even what would you call it? The sort of the narrative of the game, let's say, Test to T20, and how they differ because of the format.
Was there a question?
I'd just say a thing and wait for you to say a thing.
And just give me a sus look. They're almost incomparable, to be honest. They're almost different sports. I think, especially with ODI cricket, as it's to bridge the gap. There are very few comparisons you can really make.
I was going to say, sorry to interrupt, Charlie. Have you seen the new Harry Hill Stuart Lee thing?
Yes, I have. Yeah. I watched it.
There's a moment where he tries to ask a question but doesn't know how to finish asking the question. He just goes. Starts laughing.
I enjoyed it.
Sorry, carry on.
Where were we at? I'd honestly think you would probably be best off just going into this not even thinking about tests.
Just forget tests.
I think we can still all be guilty of placing too much on sort of your classic test ideals. And even the fact that we'll touch on Australia later, and the fact that they don't have the big three quicks. Initially, I thought, well, that's their chances dashed. But then when I actually looked into who they've got instead, it's like, well, no, this is a different sport, and the people they've got, they're very well equipped for what they have come here to do. I think. What do I think?
What do you think, Charlie? What do you think?
I think?
You do a lot of it.
I had an excellent point.
Yeah, it's always the excellent points that fade.
Just slipped away.
Do you want me to? Well, if it comes back at any point, just give me a nudge or exclaim loudly, and we will revisit that. I was going to ask you about conditions and about venues, because we spent a lot of time, and obviously we shouldn't think too much about tests, but it feels like this is a cricket thing generally. Is conditions, is venues, and will they suit England? We mentioned that India, in their own backyard, and a really strong side as well, have a fantastic opportunity to win this one, retain it, and be the first team to win it at home as well, which is crazy to think. How should, in theory, England get on?
So England's 4 group games are played just across two. Pardon me. England's 4 group games played just across 2 grounds, which I think will be a massive help for them. In the 2023 ODI World Cup in India,
are any of those the Wankhede?
Yes, it is.
We're playing at the Wankhede.
We're playing at the Wankhede.
Good.
Sorry, I feel very rusty today.
Well, I feel very rusty as well because I can hardly speak. Although apparently I sound fine, so there you go.
You do. So I think England are playing 4 games across 2 venues, which will be a massive help to them in the 2023 ODI World Cup. They played their 10 group games across 9 different venues, and obviously India is a massive place to travel. 9 venues. Yeah, I think there was 10 in total, and England played across pretty much all of them. And the only other team to do that was India. Granted, India won every game they played apart from the final. But obviously they were just so accustomed to the conditions, and India is such a massive place in the north and the south. have such differing conditions, and then the grounds themselves also have like pretty different conditions. So it was just such an uphill struggle to sort of acclimatise to a new ground every game. So England won't have that this time. Also, the two grounds that they are at are pretty good for batting historically.
So we've got the Wankhede,
The Wankhede, that's in Mumbai.
which is as is on this beautiful research pack. Did you put this together, Charlie?
Well, I'm ashamed to admit that ChatGPT put it together, which I try to use as little as possible.
How many prompts did you have to give it?
It didn't need many prompts, but you won't have seen the ones that I've cut out, which was basically like good bowling will be rewarded, or like spinners will do well if they bowl in the right areas. It's like, okay,
very insightful from ChatGPT there. So yes, it says here about the Wankhede Stadium is one of the most batter-friendly venues in India. Short boundaries and a fast outfield aid big hitting. Now that, when I read that, I think, oh, England like that.
Yeah, they did. And the last time they played there in a World Cup, they made 230 for 8 versus South Africa. Joe Root actually made a brilliant 80-odd, and we've not seen him in T20 cricket
How
for a long
come
time.
he's not in T20 cricket?
I think England just decided that they wanted to manage his workload, and the best way to do that would be to stop him playing T20s. I think, he has dipped his toes into the franchise stuff a bit more in the last few years, and I think, he clearly had an appetite for it, but that ship has sailed. Unfortunately, obviously we'd always like to see Joe Root playing
Just
any
playing
cricket,
yeah.
I think, the feeling was probably, that you can only afford one anchor, and David Milan was sort of doing well as the anchor at the time. The anchor just means, do you know what the anchor means? Anchor means?
I just assumed it was someone who came in to steady the ship and...
Yeah,
go
exactly.
in the
It's
middle.
basically, you'd usually have one person, historically, at least one person in your top three whose job was just to sort of bat through the innings and worry less about run rate. And then, the other players can build around that. It's sort of like, we still see in ODI cricket, a lot of people like Root are great at doing that, and Kohli especially. But I think in T20 cricket, we've, the feeling is that we've moved on from that. And actually,
Just bash it
T20
about.
overs isn't that long, so you don't really need one. Everyone should be, even the person who has the ability to bat the overs, if you are batting an entire an innings, you should have at least 100, if not more runs, which is a decent click. And it's something Josh Butler is very good at, actually. For when he played for Rajasthan, he got 400s in the season, just sort of batting through and making... 100 off 60, 110 off 60, and then everyone else can bat around you. But we sort of see that differently now. But the last match England played at Mumbai was a 150-run loss to India. That was in the last World Cup. Oh, no, to South Africa, I think. Was that South Africa as well? Oh, no, that was T20 cricket, sorry. Yes, sorry. I saw a 150-run loss, and I assumed that meant ODI, but no, this was... We played a 5-match... T20 series against India last year, and we got absolutely obliterated. Mumbai we lost by 150 runs, which is pretty
Let's hope that doesn't
mental.
happen again.
I don't think they'll be looking forward to reliving that memory. However, the games are against Nepal and the West Indies, not India, which will probably help them, I think.
And what's the other ground that...
The other ground's Kolkata. Which again is decent for batting. What does ChatGPT say, Johnny?
I'm just trying to find it.
Number 2.
The one directly above. Eden Gardens. It's traditionally batting friendly early on, with spinners increasingly influential as matches progress. Interesting.
And chasing has been slightly advantageous. So similarly, their last match there against India, they got smashed. They lost by 7 wickets. But I think we can just
emerging.
we can just discount that series because it was a mauling. Again, it's a ground that England. The good thing about it being in India is that, and being T20, is that so many.
We both paused for a sip at the same time there.
Is that so many of the players will be used to playing in those grounds. In the IPL, so it won't be as alien, the conditions.
That's a good point.
England did play there in the T20 World Cup, and it was in the final, and they lost to the West Indies. Have you ever seen the Carlos Brathwaite, remember the name?
No.
So it was England were in the driving seat in the last over. It was Ben Stokes to bowl it.
Yeah.
And this unknown guy called Carlos Brathwaite hit 5 sixes in a row to win it for West Indies. Wow. And there's great commentary of Ian Bishop, who's like one of the best commentators. He's West Indian fast bowler, just going, Carlos Brathwaite, remember the name. And it's very iconic.
Has he done a bit since then?
No, he retired really early. I have him on LinkedIn actually. He's a big sort of tech guy now. So
Is he?
Not really.
So
he's a good commentator. He's clearly very intelligent man, but he never made much of himself.
Interesting. So his name wasn't really remembered for anything other than to remember his name.
It's just for that. Sorry, Carlos. Didn't expect you to be catching strays.
He has really caught strays there.
No, I like.
And he's your friend.
You
know him well. LinkedIn.
No, I don't. I follow him. We're not connected.
No, you're not. Oh, okay.
Not
I thought you went way back. You and Carlos.
No. I just followed him on LinkedIn. God.
That's what life has come to.
I think we can't really go any further with England before discussing the fact that Scotland are in their group.
Scotland are in their group, but Scotland weren't originally going to be in their group, were they?
No. So
I know about this because I just read about it.
Yes. So I might butcher the sort of geopolitics behind it, but there's sort of tension between India and Bangladesh at the minute, and part of the reason is that India are basically sort of they're providing asylum to the ex-Bangladeshi Prime Minister who has basically been sentenced to death in Bangladesh, I believe, because there was, the big student uprising there a few years ago. So, tensions are high for that reason and for a couple of others. And that led to basically the BCCI telling one of the IPL teams that Mustafizur Rahman, I think it was KKR, Mustafizur Rahman, the Bangladeshi fast bowler, they said cancel his contract. So they have done. So he's not allowed to play in the next IPL. So Bangladesh basically said, if you don't think it's right for him to play in India, then how can any of us play in India? And he said, I think often when stuff like this happens, the phrase they use is security concerns.
Yeah.
And England cancelled a trip to Bangladesh to Pakistan a few years ago for security concerns, which basically translated to we can't be asked to play this. We're too busy right now, and basically New Zealand had a genuine security concern flash up in the build-up, so they left, and then England were like, well, this is a perfect chance for us to just say that and leave as well. It ended up with them playing a 7-match T20 series the following year to make up for it, which sounds like the shittest thing in the world, but it was actually 4-3 England or Pakistan in the end, and it was a really good series. So it all worked out in that case. But yeah, I think, India said the security concerns thing. So then Bangladesh were like, well, if the security concerns of a Bangladesh player in India, then how are we supposed to travel to India?
Yeah.
And, it's being co-hosted in Sri Lanka. Can't we just move our games to Sri Lanka? See, granted, this happened really, really close to the start of the tournament. And so unsurprisingly, it hasn't been sorted out, but it was a little bit like the ICC turned around and went, no, we've checked and there are no security concerns. You were sort of saying that you don't agree with.
Well, I just think I was more talking about the Pakistan one.
Yes. Okay.
So,
well, let's quickly run through that as well then. So then Pakistan sort of in solidarity with Bangladesh said, or maybe we'll pull out now as well. And then it seemed like there was a point where if Pakistan were to drop out, because all their games are in Sri Lanka, because they don't play in India, then the front runner to replace them would have been Bangladesh, which would have been interesting to see whether Bangladesh would have done that.
So they pull out of solidarity with Bangladesh, who go, oh, thank you, we'll have a piece of that.
But they've ended up just boycotting the one game. And then there's so much more backstory to this. So if you just want to tell me your initial thoughts, and then I'll try and explain maybe how we got here.
Okay. Well, obviously this is a very surface level instinct, but my instinct was if you're going to boycott one game, so Pakistan, their government decided that it would play in the tournament apart from against India, and I just instinctively went, if you're going to pull out of what is a huge game, and it's against India, it's a very important game. Why would you play if you're going to do that? I don't understand why you would. Why not just do the full boycott?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think this goes back quite a way. Obviously, the India-Pakistan conflict goes back to the formation of Pakistan as a nation by us.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Some things repeat themselves throughout history, don't they?
But, you know, they haven't played bilaterally for a long time. But that sort of almost, as I was saying to you earlier, increases the scarcity of these games and makes them, they were already, you know, one of, if not the biggest fixture in the calendar.
Fierce.
So then for it to be, you know, few and far between makes them even more valuable. And, you know, the money involved in these games is just insane. But, you know, that is reflected in the fact that these tournaments are constructed in such a way, and arguably maybe even played at all, to sort of
Facilitate,
make these games happen. So an interesting little fact about World Cup draws in cricket is that they're not public. they just get released. They're just like, these are the groups.
These are the groups. Here you go.
And Pakistan and India are always in the same group.
Yeah.
Like, without fail. And then the Asia Cup,
That's brilliant.
which is, you know, just all the Asian nations. People basically just say that exists for India to play Pakistan. And in the last edition of the Asia Cup, they played 3 times in a short tournament. It was like the group stage, and then you went through to like a second mini group stage where you all played each other again,
and then
the final with the top 2.
Yeah.
So they played each other 3 times.
And that was the final, was it?
Yes. But it's made slightly even more farcical by the fact that India just dominate Pakistan in recent times. Right. Like, it's not a close game ever, but also Pakistan might feel that that's because, you know, things are never in their favour in terms of venues and stuff like that. Pakistan did not host any international cricket or tournaments for a long time because there was a terror attack on a Sri Lankan bus, the players, and they sort of lost their ability to host for a long time. They played in the UAE, and then they finally got the opportunity last year to host the Champions Trophy, and, you know, everyone could see it coming from a mile off that India weren't going to travel, but they left it fairly late to say, actually, we're not going to travel.
Yeah.
So then they did this thing where all of India's games were in the UAE, but that meant that the India-Pakistan game, which obviously there was one because they were in the same group, because that's how it works. It meant, you know, Pakistan should have had home advantage, and they didn't. They played in the UAE. India played all their games on one ground that was great for spin. They played 4 spinners. They won every game. They won the tournament, and they beat Pakistan in their home ground, not at home.
Yeah.
And then, you know, to contrast that with the India-Pakistan game a year or 2 prior in the 2023 World Cup, the Narendra Modi Stadium, 100,000+ capacity, sea of blue. There's no one from Pakistan there, like, apart from, like, I don't know the numbers, but you couldn't see or hear any. And obviously, you know, India had made it very difficult for Pakistanis to travel to that game. And yeah, again, India just completely dominated.
Yeah.
All of that, I think, is part of the reason why Bangladesh thought, can't we just play in Sri Lanka? Because, after the Champions Trophy thing, Pakistan had been playing India up to that point, but then they were just like, well, no, if you're not going to come to us, we won't come to you.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's just how it's going to have to be from now on. But then in the most recent Asia Cup, they weren't shaking hands. This was after the terror attack and the sort of 4 days of conflict. Mm. But all of this comes from the government. It's important to note, like, this isn't the team deciding. Like, the government says on both sides, India and Pakistan and Bangladesh are making these decisions, and the players in their press conference just say, we will do whatever the government asks.
Yeah.
Which, you know, it's sad, but it's the way it is. So then I think, you know, Bangladesh were like, well, this is co-hosted in Sri Lanka. Pakistan are allowed to play all their games in Sri Lanka, including the one against India. So India were going to travel to Sri Lanka for that game. So surely you can let us do that as well. And they just said no. So I think Bangladesh, sort of citing the double standards, said we're off.
Which is fair enough.
Yeah. But I think, to be fair, Mark Butcher said that, you know, if you're boycott, you know, we shouldn't. He said, you know, this example of what's happened to Bangladesh should be what happens going forward. We shouldn't bend the rules for India. We shouldn't bend the rules for Pakistan. Mm. If you don't want to go to a place, you don't play the tournament at all.
Yeah.
Which I think is fair enough. But
that would be my stance, I think.
With the power balance the way it is, you just, you know, a global tournament without India is just unfathomable at the minute.
Yeah.
So then that brings us to Pakistan, they were saying they were going to boycott in solidarity with Bangladesh, but have now instead said they're going to just boycott the India game.
How would that work from a tournament perspective, though?
Well, I think it's difficult because given everything that I've just said, I don't want to endorse this, especially because it's just a government thing. But I do think for Pakistan, it's like the only power they hold in this dynamic is that they play India in these tournaments. India have like the dominant force and, clearly have the ICC on their side in these issues. So to say, well, actually, we're not going to play this game that makes you loads of money, the ICC, because, India are the most important team overall, but India-Pakistan is the most important game and we are half of that. So we're going to withdraw.
So that's their only kind of bargaining chip.
Yeah. And I think even yesterday when I was researching, it was still saying, there's like sort of backdoor talks between the ICC and Pakistan.
So this could still get sorted out even now.
Yeah. So I think I do understand from their perspective why they did this and why this is, the only sort of thing they have to play with, really.
Yeah.
However, they just won't win the tournament like this. I think there's still a chance of getting out the group if they win all their other games. But
so they would just lose that game then?
They would lose that game, yeah. And then, I think they could win all their other games, but Pakistan, they're very unpredictable. They could lose one of them. They lost to the USA in the last World Cup and didn't make it out the group, which had India in.
Shock.
So, it's not a given, but even if they did, they would then be into the Super 8s. And I don't actually know who would play who in the Super 8s, but if it's anything like it was last time, the groups are like pre-seeded, meaning that as long as the big team, basically England, if they finish first or second, they know that India and Australia won't be in their next group.
Okay.
Like irrespective of where India and Australia finish, if they were to qualify. So it's not like if England came first, Australia came second, they would
play each other, yeah.
They already know that's not the case. It's because the groups are like pre-seeded. Yeah. So you basically already know who's going to be in the next group.
It feels very engineered, this.
It is very engineered. And I imagine the part of the reason why they've done it that way is that India and Pakistan would play again to get through. So then that won't happen.
So if Pakistan boycott and still go through, they just will not go any further anyway because they will have to play India.
There'll be another little group.
Yeah.
And then they'll play all their games apart from India. But then I imagine that, maybe there's a chance that if they won the other two games, they could get through again. Yeah. But they're still going to face India again at some point.
So there is no way, if they boycott, they would have to face India en route to winning this.
Yeah, unless they went out in the groups, India, which just isn't going to happen. So I do think, I don't want to call it noble, as bold of a move it is for Pakistan to do this, they have basically just, as far as I can tell, forfeited any chance of
winning it. Which, as you know, as someone who is very into the idea of win at all costs, it doesn't really align with the way I would. But I do see what you're saying about how if you are feeling that the authorities are not on your side, and the only thing you can do is say, well, look, we're half of your biggest fixture. We pull out. That's going to, you'd think, bring them to the table. And it sounds like it has brought them to the table if they're still backdoor talks. But as you say, you're not going to win. You're not going to win.
No. But to bring this back around to England, it means that Bangladesh, who were due to be their only Asian team in England's group, which already in a spin-friendly World Cup is pretty massive, to only have Bangladesh, who, they're a good outfit, but I think, you're lucky to have avoided India and, Afghanistan, a very, very good team these days, and some of the other teams. So they would have taken that anyway. So
and
then
now
have them
Scotland.
replaced with Scotland.
Yeah.
In England have West Indies, Italy, Scotland and Nepal, I think. So Nepal is still an Asian team.
Feels like a Gareth Southgate era England football draw where we just...
Yeah. So they've really, I think they've...
Any chance, though, that they would go in a bit undercooked if they were to get through to... Or does that not really factor in?
It's interesting. I think in the last T20 World Cup, they got to the semi-finals, but basically through a route that was like every game that they could have lost, they lost. Yeah. And every game that they should have won, they annihilated the other team.
Right.
And then the only sort of game that they won that was iffy was West Indies in the sort of second group phase, the Super 8s. And that was enough to get them to the semis, even though I think they lost a game in the Super 8s as well.
Yeah.
And then, they came up against India and just got absolutely trounced. So
Yeah.
you can make an argument for that, I believe. But I think the 3-0 series win in Sri Lanka will be massive for them. I think they looked really impressive in a few different ways.
Right.
That will make them feel good coming into this. So hopefully, they get a good run out against Scotland, West Indies, and that I would expect them to win every game.
Yeah.
And it would probably be alarm bells if they don't, even if they got through.
Yeah, it does sound like it's quite a favourable group situation. Should we have a quick chat about that Sri Lanka series? I mean, you touched on it there, and that they were, strong in different ways. So you feel that England are coming into this tournament in a good spot then?
Yeah, I do. I think in the first game they bowled Sri Lanka out quite cheaply after they got off to a good start. The spinners really strangled them, and then Sam Curran popped in with a hat-trick at the end. And then the second game they let a quite a bigger total, 190-ish, but they chased it down with ease. It was slightly sort of compressed because of a rain delay. But yeah, it was still a very impressive chase, and high chases in Sri Lanka aren't necessarily all that common. And then the last game was the most impressive because, as I said, they fell to 60 for 6. They managed to scrap their way up to 129, and then they span out Sri Lanka with Jackson Bethel taking 7 wickets between them. So I think, there was certainly a lot of stuff to like. I think, the batting lineup is looking good, with the exception of, on the pitch that span, they sort of fell apart, which is slightly worrying because there is going to be at least one pitch that will spin. I think to have someone of the level of Liam Dawson pairing with Rashid is massive, because Adil Rashid's been, England's only hope in white ball cricket for a long time now. And so to have another quality spinner, Dawson's been around the block. He's been in and around 4 or 5 World Cup squads. He's always like the reserve or sort of the travelling reserve, or just doesn't play. So to have someone with his sort of nous and his professionalism is massive for England. And then I think the only other question marks that have arisen for me, along with, where does Curran, Banton, Duckett bat and who misses out, is 2 things. It's the expensiveness of the seamers. I think Curran, Overton and even Archer all went for runs in that series. And even though the spin is looking healthy, you're going to need some seam bowling at points, especially up top and at the end of the innings. So if they're just getting carted every time, then that presents a real issue for England. In fairness to Harry Brook, he's a bit more progressive in how he uses spin than previous England captains, and he was happy to just bowl spin right up to the end the other night when it was clear that spin was working. So, it's good for England that they have so many spin options in their best 11, and also that they have a captain who's comfortable using it through all phases of the innings. And then the only other thing that slightly worries me is that if Curran is going to be at 6, then who is... And then Jack's at 7, who's he's a very capable white ball batter, but he's traditionally always been an opener, and this 7 role is something that England have, McCullum and Brook have sort of carved out for him and said, we want you to play this role. But it just means that 6 and 7, you probably want at least one specialist finisher, like a Liam Livingstone, who isn't here, and I don't feel that England have that. So I think there's going to be a lot on Harry Brook and him sort of being there at the end and being able to go berserk, and then there'll be a lot on Jamie Overton at 8 as well. He's a hitter, tremendous hitter, and I do think both with the bowling and the batting, England could sort of fall away a little bit at the end of innings, which the death overs in T20 are so crucial, and that could be where some games are lost.
So I suppose we should chat about some predictions. We've kind of discussed who we think is in the driving seat, or at least should be for the tournament. So India, by the sounds of it, are pretty heavy favourites. Who else would you throw into that mix, Charlie?
So I think it's pretty split with one in each group, I would say.
Quick drink.
I'm feeling very salivous today.
Salivous? Is that the word?
No.
I like it. Salivous Snape.
The groups are pretty, sort of spread out in a way where I wouldn't expect too many upsets.
Yeah.
So you've got India, Pakistan, USA, Netherlands, and Namibia in the first group. I think USA and Netherlands are capable of good stuff on the day, but India will get through, and then it will just depend on whether Pakistan can be consistent enough in their other games to get through in second.
Is that assuming that boycott stands?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And then Group B, Australia, Sri Lanka, Zimbabwe, and Oman and Ireland. Australia, obviously, big favourites there, and then you would back Sri Lanka to get through that group as well as hosts. And I think that entire group is in Sri Lanka, I think.
Okay.
So all of Australia games as well, and we'll come to Australia in a moment. England, West Indies, Scotland, Nepal, Italy. England, I think, are looking quietly good. I don't think anyone's coming into this with huge expectations, but I think people are feeling that England will make the semis, should make the semis. And then you've got, West Indies are, used to be a force in T20 cricket. They were a quality side for a period of time, but I think, they've really struggled in recent times, but I would still sort of back them to get through that group when you look at who else is in it. And then the group of death for me is Group D. New Zealand, South Africa and Afghanistan are all quality sides. And Canada and the UAE wouldn't think would get much of a look in, unfortunately. Afghanistan made the semis of the last T20 World Cup. They were unlucky not to make the semis of the ODI World Cup before that. It was only a freak innings from Glenn Maxwell for Australia that sort of stopped them from getting there. He scored 200 off 130 balls, injured, basically. He was like, you'll have to watch the highlights. They fell like nothing for six, like chasing quite a big target. It looked over. Their only hope was that Maxwell was going well. Then he got insanely bad cramp and was basically just not able to move anymore. Yeah. So he had to stand completely still for the rest of his innings and just like smack it where he could. And he was just smashing sixes, literally not moving. Wow. And he got them over the line.
I do wonder in those situations where if you're forced to play a particular way, or if you're so limited, it almost A, gives you something to really focus on and say, well, this is the way I've got to play, so I'm going to do it. And B, it gets in the heads of the opponents because they're like, well, surely we should try and exploit this.
Yeah, and you change your methods.
You change your plan, yeah.
And I think because Glenn Maxwell specifically is such like a hand-orientated player, like he's all about the hand-eye rather than the foot movement. Right. And he's got these great wrists where he can sort of, maneuver them and flip the ball out all over the shot, but it actually was kind of fine.
Yeah.
But then every shot that required him to fall over a little bit or turn, he would just then be flat on the ground for 5 minutes before they could get him up again.
Yeah.
But yeah, New Zealand, South Africa, Afghanistan. I've got South Africa as one of the favourites, but Afghanistan have been really good in T20s in the last few years.
New Zealand, South Africa,
Afghanistan are in one group.
That's a bit of a group of death then.
It is, absolutely. And that's I just said that.
Did you just say that?
Yes, I did.
Sorry. I'm always listening, Charlie. I'm always on it.
And I think New Zealand are always sort of underrated going into tournaments, and they always manage to progress to a decent stage. So I think you'd be silly to write off New Zealand. And I'm actually probably going to say South Africa and New Zealand will make it through that group, but I do think Afghanistan are going to be a real handful in spinning conditions, and I think that's the only one where there's sort of serious question marks over it.
Yeah.
So in terms of the favourites, it's worth talking about India a bit more. I think the IPL has just meant they've got such a plethora of talent to be able to call on in T20 cricket. And actually something interesting happened a couple of years ago where they recognised, they play more international cricket than anyone else. So they recognised that they needed to have a bit more variation in their squads to protect the sort of welfare of some of their biggest stars. I think, Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, KL Rahul, and Ravi Jadeja and a few more. So they sort of created this B team to play T20 internationals.
Yeah.
And the B team has basically just become the A team through sheer performance. And they won the last T20 World Cup with Rohit, Kohli, and Jadeja all there, and KL Rahul, and Rishabh Pant as well. So, they're capable players in T20, and obviously good to have in high pressure situations because they've been there, done it. But you would argue that this team that they've created in their absence is more of an actual sort of the proto T20 team, like for the modern era.
Yeah.
For this era where the IPL scoring rates has just ballooned because of something called the impact player, which is essentially a substitute that they've brought into the IPL. And I think it was thought when it was first brought in that there was going to be a lot of different ways that it could be used, but what's actually happened is teams just use it to have an extra batter. And so, if you bat first in between innings, you just swap out an opener that doesn't bowl for a bowler. And then if you batted second, you would swap out a bowler that doesn't bat for a batter. And you essentially just have an extra batter in your team. And what that does is it sort of it emboldens the players to go harder because they know they have an extra person in the tank and that they can call on. And then that just meant that the scores just skyrocketed because it was like, well, actually, the handbrake's completely off now. We feel completely safe in what's coming in next after us, so we'll just go.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, a good score went from 210, 220 to 260, 270. And I think actually the impact of the impact sub has been that now even in T20 cricket that doesn't have the sub, like other like internationals and other tournaments are like, well, actually we know now that we can do that, so let's just do it. Like most of the time that batter we've got in at number 8 isn't even getting on the pitch, so let's just go for it.
Yeah.
And India's certainly have the players that have led that forwards. Surya Kumar Yadav, their captain, is sort of maybe the best T20 batter of all time. He's a little bit past his peak now, but his peak years were just absolutely ridiculous. Like he would consistently score at, I think there was a good while where his T20I strike rate was 180 across his entire career, when it was thought 140 plus was more than enough. Yeah. And then you've got Abhishek Sharma doing that at the top of the order now. He's sort of just absolutely crazy left-hander that just tries to dominate the power play and beyond. And I think increasingly, whenever I look at scorecards now, the match-winning innings is, especially when a team's got to 230, is someone hitting 80 something off 30 something seems to be how you win matches now. And I think India have a few players that can play innings like that. So I think they're in a very good position. Also in the spin department, they've got Varun Chakravarti, Kuldeep Yadav, Axar Patel and Washington Sundar, who are all just fantastic spinners and can pretty much all bat as well. So they'll bat down to 10 or 11. They've got Jasprit Bumrah as well, enough said. I mean, if you thought he was good in tests, he's probably even better in T20s. He's probably the best T20 bowler there's ever been.
Sounds quite ominous.
Yeah. But I think, I do really like the team because I think it's really cool how it's a completely different team to who plays for them in other formats, but it's like so specialised to T20 cricket. And to their credit, they even tried to incorporate Shubman Gill into the last stage of Cup. And everyone was like, well, why? Because he'll have to open, and you've got Abhishek opening with Sanju Samson, who I love because I'm a Rajasthan fan. He's very underrated and very much deserves his sort of chance to be a regular stalwart for India. And they've very quickly been, that doesn't work. We split up a great opening partnership. They've just taken Gill right back out. Yeah. I think they're definitely uniquely equipped to deal with this World Cup. And also, they don't have to go to Sri Lanka for a game anymore. It's all in India. It
seems to be all falling in a direction. I don't know if you saw me there, Charlie, but I was trying to find a predictor where you can, similar to World Cups, you can sort of, football World Cups, this is a World Cup, where you can, guess who's going to get out of the groups and then predict the tournament. But they were all too long and difficult. So should we try and do a very quick predictor just using the...
Yeah, I just don't know what's going to happen after the groups is the problem.
So is it that we won't... Will they just announce that? Do they just drop that?
It will be somewhere, but I can't find it reported. I think the other thing that will be a bit of whiplash for you compared to just being a football fan is just how little information there is out there. And I don't think it's the fault of journalists. It's just not readily available.
Interesting.
In the same way.
So it kind of falls into place, jigsaw falling into place, where we don't actually know if side A wins, Group A. Mm-hmm. We don't know who they're going to play.
So did you have to do it? You have to do it game by game.
You have to go game by game, and also be quite specific about the scoring as well.
Really?
Yeah, I think.
Oh, 6 in the match. That's got to be something else, surely. Like, that's got to be... Anyway.
I don't think we've got time. I don't think
Yeah, let's not do that. But I think...
Well, should we just... So who's going to get out of each group? So Group A, India,
Pakistan, Australia, Sri Lanka, England, West Indies, New Zealand, South Africa, literally just the people at the top of the list. I would say I don't think we're going to see any
shocks.
Massive shocks. I think that, with the way that cricket works, is very much two-tiered between full members and associates. It's not the same like football where it's kind of just like a list of... And there's teams in the middle that could beat each other. I think you'll see individual shocks in games, but I would be surprised overall in a 5-team group if the biggest teams didn't make it out, with the exception of Pakistan. But obviously, I would probably have them as my one who I thought wouldn't get through anyway. Like, they're the ones who would be most likely to drop the ball because they have in the past.
Yeah.
But I also think they're due a good tournament. They're so unpredictable, but they've been so poor for so long, it feels like, that I do think they're due a good one. The only one with any doubt over it for me is that last group. And I don't... You know what? I'm going to say South Africa, Afghanistan, and I'm going to, after saying that New Zealand don't get the respect they deserve,
you're going to knock them out.
I'm going to not give them the respect they deserve, and they will almost definitely now make it through.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say South Africa, Afghanistan, just to do something slightly interesting.
Yeah.
And then...
So then it goes into another group phase.
Yeah, the Super 8, so it's 2 groups of 4.
Yeah.
And then the top 2...
But we have no way of knowing
semi-finals.
Who they're going to be, do we?
No, but I would imagine it will be done in such a way where
India and Pakistan.
You have the opportunity for England, Australia, South Africa, and England and India, of course, to be in those semis. I think India will win it. I think South Africa will do well. Australia, let's talk about Australia, because there's a lot of people in that squad who I don't know a huge lot about, and I assume would not have heard of. So I did my due diligence yesterday to have a quick look at how they play. Even the people I had heard of them. I don't want to do myself that disservice, but like I didn't know much about them.
Yeah.
So I just had a quick look at the players I didn't know, and Xavier Bartlett, Ben Dwarshius, Nathan Ellis, who I did know and I like him a lot, are their sort of their quick bowlers. And it's not Stark, Cummins, Hazelwood. Cummins and Hazelwood are both injured. Mitch Stark has retired from this format to prioritise tests and the World Cup, the ODI World Cup next year. But these are all, quick bowlers who have fantastic domestic and international T20 records. They all average in the low 20s, which means a little bit less in T20s, but it's still a good sign. And their strike rates are all very high. They all take... It was about 15, 16 for a couple of them, which means they're taking, a wicket and a bit per innings, which is very good for T20. Usually in T20, if someone's taking a wicket a game, they're probably, good enough. But then, so when you see certain players in this list that have taken, 40 more wickets than they played games, it's very promising. Nathan Ellis I've really liked for a while. He's sort of is their Sam Curran, sort of short, skiddy, lots of change-ups and slower balls. I think he's in a little bit of a fitness race as well. I think if he was to drop out, then, there are alarm bells ringing. But I like the pace attack. I think where I'm worried about them, well, I'm not worried, I hope they don't do well, is the spin department. Adam Zampa is like their Adil Rashid. He's just an uber reliable leg spinner who always turns up. So I've got no qualms with him. But then he's paired with Matthew Kuhneman, who has pretty horrid record in both domestic and international T20s up to this point. But he's done well in tests and ODIs in Asia. So I think they see him as a bit of like an Asia specialist, which is why he's sort of been parachuted in. And then Cooper Connolly is sort of their spinning all-rounder. He's sort of a youngster who's a bit more of like a rogue pick from them who they've just backed. But he's in a real poor run of form with the bat, and his numbers with the ball and T20s aren't that impressive. In terms of the other batters, they've got Mitch Marsh is fantastic in T20s, and he'll be opening with Travis Head, and that's a real dangerous partnership. Tim David is like a finisher. He's brilliant. Glenn Maxwell is one of the best T20 batters of all time. Josh Inglis and Cameron Green are both very capable in this format. And then you've got Renshaw in as sort of the spare batter. He's been parachuted in. But they're in horrid form. They just lost 3-0 to Pakistan in Pakistan, which is obviously, the wickets there will probably replicate Sri Lanka in a way, because don't forget that all their group games are in Sri Lanka rather than India, and I think they would probably much rather be in India where you have some of those pitches that are better for batting. I don't think we're going to see that in Sri Lanka in the same way. And they lost that series 3-0. They had their worst ever loss in terms of runs in the second game, 90-run loss, which was a record that stood for a day before they lost by 96 runs in the third game. And actually all the chat has been around Steve Smith should be there, because he's never been much of a T20 player in the same way as Joe Root. It's just not quite. It's too above his natural tempo for him to be sort of a natural T20 player. But he's a very good player of spin. And actually, a lot of Aussie ex-pros have said in these games where there's likely to be sort of collapses and, batting spin in middle overs is going to be tricky. You just want an experienced head who's really good against spin there in Smith. And, Australia's basically saying, he's an opener in domestic T20 cricket, and he's turned himself into a bloody good one in the last few years. He doesn't play much Big Bash, which is their league, because of his test commitments. But whenever they sort of parachute him in for a few games, he scores 100 pretty much every time. So I think Australia have said two things. They've said, well, he won't open for us because we've got Marsh and Head. But then all the Australian greats have sort of said, well, no, you don't want him opening in this situation. You want him batting 4 and sort of soaking up that pressure. And clearly a lot of the Australia batters struggled against spin in that series. But then, interestingly, feeding back to what we said earlier, the other reason that's been cited as why he's not there, why they've selected Renshaw over him, is because Renshaw's left-handed.
Right, so they've prioritised the left-right situation
over having their best
spin
batter of the modern era in the squad, and a lot of people are very annoyed about that. I think it's interesting. I don't think, before I sort of looked into it, I didn't think there'd be any reason why you should have Steve Smith there. He's not really a T20 player in my mind, but given his recent form and their recent form and the very specific circumstances that we're about to see, it could have been worth having him in. One other thing I want to say generally is that the T20 scores around the world are skyrocketing year on year. However, I think there's a phenomenon that you see in a lot of, if not all, tournaments, is that the scores actually come back down. I think the quality of the bowling and the nature of the pitches where they're taking a bit of a battering over the course of a tournament, and also just the immense pressure involved in representing your country, actually causes people to play a bit more cautiously again, and the scores go back down. And then I think you do have a case for having someone like a Smith. And even India, they've got this great ultra-aggressive T20 team now, but will there be a point in the semis or the final when they really wish that Virat Kohli was there just to score, 50 or 40 and just anchor them and get them up to something that the bowlers can defend? It will be interesting to see if that's the case.
So, Charlie, to sort of wrap it up then, I'm going to ask you, as much as we can predict this now, which is not much, who are the semi-finalists going to be, who are the finalists going to be, and who's going to win it?
I think I'm really stabbing in the dark here.
Yeah.
I would love to know who's going to play who.
That would help.
But I've tried to find out.
And there's just no way of knowing.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me that you can't plot a route through the tournament.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to be very boring and say Australia, South Africa, England, India.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have a repeat of the last final, India, South Africa, and India will win again.
So a very similar plot line.
That is exactly what happened last time, apart from Australia didn't make it to the semis.
Right. Okay.
So I've been very boring. I'm not one for predictions. I'm not a betting man because my mind can never think past the most obvious result. And I also never want to bet.
But also, we don't even know what the games are going to be.
Yeah, exactly. That doesn't help.
Which doesn't help when predicting these things.
But yeah, I think India will win, but I would, I'd love to see someone else do it. I'd love to see South Africa do it because they still haven't won one of these tournaments ever.
They're always there or thereabouts, though, aren't they?
Yeah, but they're known as chokers.
Right.
They've got a bad reputation for sort of bottling it. The sort of the England, I guess, of Gareth Southgate's England.
Well, we shall see. Thank you very much, everybody, as ever, for listening. How are we going to go about? We're going to do one after the group stage, and then after the second group stage.
And then after the semis and then the final, maybe if England don't make it to the semis, then maybe we'll just do like a knockout roundup at the end.
Yeah.
Hopefully, by then, in 3 weeks, in a month's time, we'll know more about what's happening. Stick with us on this one. We will be experts by the end of this.
Absolutely. I can't think of a better word to describe myself when it comes to cricket than an expert, obviously. Thank you so much for listening. And we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.